Okay, this video is a review for the Edgenuity lesson using triangle congruence theorems. So to start off, I just want to show you some of the notes that I use when we're normally at school. So what the purpose of this lesson is the goal is not to prove the triangles are congruent. We're gonna have to do that, but the point is, so right here, so we're not proving that the triangles are congruent. That's not the end of what we're trying to do. We are proving that specific parts are congruent. So to do that, what we have to do, because remember we only need 3 things to show that the triangles are congruent. So first we're gonna prove they're congruent, and then we're going to use the fact that they're congruent to say that whatever corresponding side or whatever corresponding angle would also have to be congruent because of this theorem that the corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And you can always just use that abbreviation right there. So when you are doing this section, the last thing that you should always have in your proof is that the proof statement. So like on this one, proving the very last statement would be segment AB is congruent to segment CD, and the very last reason will be CPCTC. So I'm going to give you an example. Okay, so on this one, we are given that A is the midpoint of segment MT and segment SR, and we are trying to prove that segment MS is congruent to segment TR. I know that they do flow proofs and paragraph proofs, but I prefer to do a 2-column proof. So we always start with the given. Okay, so unfortunately for us on this one, in our given, we weren't given just like this is congruent to this, and so we get to bank one of the congruents super easy. So what we're going to have to do is use what this means to come up with congruence. So if A is the midpoint of MT, remember what it means to be a midpoint. It's going to cut this in half. If the whole length was 20, A is cutting this into 10 and 10. So these would be the same. So I can say that MA is congruent to TA because that's what a midpoint is. Definition of midpoint. Next, it also is the midpoint of SR. So same thing. It's cutting SR perfectly in half to 2 equal pieces. So I can say that segment SA is congruent to segment RA. Same reason. Okay, so we got 2 things from our given, and that's all we can get. But 2 things is not enough. We need 3 things that are congruent to say the triangles are congruent. So since we've used all the given, let's just look at the picture. Based on the way the triangles are drawn out, what do we have? And a couple of videos ago, I gave you all the things that you should look for. So when the triangles look like this, when we have 2 straight lines, we actually have vertical angles there. And we know that vertical angles have to be the same. So I would say, first I would say that angle MAS and angle, so I went across the 1 tick line, so TAR are vertical angles, and that is the definition of vertical angles. And then from there, that's not saying they're congruent, that's just saying they're vertical. So from there, I would say that angle MAS is congruent to angle TAR, and that reason is vertical angles are just the rule, they are. And then from there, I have my 3 parts. So I have 1, 2, 3 things. So I can say that triangle MAS is congruent to triangle. So I started across the 1 tick line. So TAR. Let's see if you can guess which one this is. It's 2 sides and an included angle, so that's SAS. Now, as a reminder, we're not done. We're not proving the triangles are congruent. We're proving that these segments here and here are congruent. So because we said the triangles are congruent, now we can say that MS has to be congruent to TR by CPCTC.